Hey everybody, had a question yesterday about learning curve versus effect curve. I feel like I answered it okay, but I just wanted to go into it again. I pulled the chart from the book, and I just think it does. It just allows me to illustrate the idea a little better. So, the learning curve versus the effect curve. So, your learning curve, both of these are discussed at the firm level, right? So they can apply very much so to an individual's learning curve. But the idea in the book is that we were talking about the firm as a whole, right? And the collective learning of that firm's history, their historic knowledge, and their corporate culture that's developed over that. That's the learning curve. So let's take just look right here. So at the top, we've got the learning curve here in brown, right? So at the very beginning of a firm, in order to produce one unit, it costs $100 per unit to produce, right? So it's very slow, it's very inefficient. So this can be, so taking it out of the firm and putting it into the individual hands, imagine your first day at a new job, right? So your first, just to be flippant, but say your first day at Starbucks, right? So the first day you learn to be a barista, you show up, you've never touched one of these machines before, you don't even know, let alone, you can't make coffee, so you can't make the coffee, let alone know how to work the register or deal with customers, etc. So on that first day, it costs a lot more for you just to do that simple job, right? But then every day that goes by, you learn a little bit more. Every day that goes by, you learn a little bit more about how it's done, and your learning curve gets better such that your total output is per unit cost less. It costs less it takes you less time and therefore costs the firm less for each cup of coffee you make, simply because as time goes on, you learn how each step of those things goes. Now, when you get down here, it says 90% learning curve right here. The idea is that your learning curve starts to level out slowly, and that somewhere eventually you might reach 100% of a learning curve. If you've been working at Starbucks for a few years, you are so dialed into the process from the moment you get to work until the moment you leave that you can create almost no additional efficiency there. You know exactly what to say to each individual type of customer and how to respond to each individual type of customer's request, including unique requests that might come up, and how everything within that store functions. So at 100%, you can produce no more output per cost. You just can't. You are at 100% learning curve. That's the same thing for firms, which is the idea here, that the firm on day one when the factory is stood up, you've put some foresight into this, and you've established your factory in a certain way, but every day that goes by, you're going to learn how to make that process a little more efficient. So, you might move one piece of machinery to another part of the shop because it flows better and thus saves each employee 15 steps per whatever, which again increases your productivity, your output, and reduces your cost. So that learning curve is simply getting better every day that goes by at what you're doing. So firm A, which is a newer firm, right? It hasn't learned that much about what it's doing, so its per unit cost is still higher. Firm B's been around a little bit longer, or you can hire education and experience against this, right? You can hire experts to come in and help you that are just better and position you further along the learning curve to keep going. So that's the learning curve. Then we have the experience curve effect, right? Now, the experience curve effect is the general idea, to be as specific as I can about this, and almost always involves the inject of some form of technology. Now, when I say technology, it could be the very physical, tangible types of technology. Absolutely. By that, I mean it can be a new software, it could be a new machine. It could just be, if you have a forklift in a warehouse, it could just be a newer, better forklift, any number of things. But technology can also refer to larger process improvements. The best one, obviously, in history has been the implementation of Lean and Six Sigma processes in manufacturing. The Lean process has made manufacturing infinitely more efficient, and the Six Sigma process has reduced errors, which of course makes things more efficient and reduces your per unit cost because there are fewer errors. So imagine you've got the learning curve of firm B, and you've been doing this long enough that you've got your per unit cost, down to about here, right? And then somebody comes in and you implement Lean Six Sigma into your factory floor. Well, now, because you've implemented this technology of process improvement, instead of continuing to follow this learning curve, you will immediately benefit from the experience curve effect and drop down to this learning curve, wherein the curve itself from learning is still the same, but your per unit cost and your output shift dramatically. You just dramatically jump. It becomes much steeper, as you can see, because you employed that technology. And yes, you can employ it up here. And if you employ it right at the start, imagine two companies, firm A and firm C, who at the very start of doing the exact same thing, firm C had Lean Six Sigma and firm A did not. They're going to learn differently. Firm A is going to have all kinds of lessons learned about their factory. Firm C is going to have lessons learned about their factory, but they're going to perceive them in the context of this new technology, which is the Lean Six Sigma process. Their learning curve is going to become far steeper. They're going to learn faster, and they're going to learn better, and they're going to reach efficiency, peak efficiency at a better time. So again, that was really fast, but I feel like I hit about half of that yesterday, but I just feel like the graphic does a much better job of sort of illustrating the conversation along. So thank you for the time, and I'll see you tomorrow.